I hope everyone can see me. Am I audible to everyone? Okay. Hari Prasad, Vivek, Varun, Munna.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you, Varun, for the confirmation. Okay, so first of all, I would extend a very hearty warm welcome to all the students who have once again assembled here for another enthralling online session by Dr. Himanshu Asnani. First of all, I would like to even extend my heartfelt welcome to Dr. Himanshu sir for once again accepting my request for coming for this session. The topic is also very intriguing, very wonderful. Mindfulness 2.0, the Gita way. So, sir will once again, enlighten us with the views and perspective from the Bhagavad Gita on how to develop this concept of mindfulness. So, without any further delays, and so we will start. We will jump right into the session with Dr. Himanshu. Sir, please. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashutosh, for again inviting me. You all can hear me properly? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you again for inviting me. And I first of all wish that all of you are doing well in health and heart and your studies, everything. Um, Seems like Corona is making another fresh move with all its sentinels and cavalry and horseback cases are. Um, there is something on my video. Spotlight. Okay, yes. So, yeah, so I hope all of you are doing well. Please do take necessary precautions and stay healthy physically and also mentally. And this session is especially about catering to our mental health. You must have heard about this word called mindfulness. Uh, I think those in the Western Hemisphere, maybe in America or other places, perhaps heard about this word much before than we Indians heard it in India. Um, Recently, I was hearing a mom who works in Canada telling and expressing her surprise that her maybe 5, 6 year old son was telling that he's been taught mindfulness in Canadian schools. And he was telling her that how the schools are teaching them that you be aware while eating food, you be aware while you're going in the garden, take notice of the flowers, take notice of the surroundings, so on and so forth. Don't do things in a rush, do one thing at a time. And they have meditation drills and things like that. So she was very intrigued uh, that something like this used to exist in our tradition, the tradition of Bhagavata, the tradition of Bhagavad Gita, the tradition of Rama and Mahabharata. And here it is uh, in a seemingly very different language, but the material is the same. It's like giving an old wine in a new bottle. I'm not asking you to drink wine, but just giving you an analogy. So she was very intrigued. And why shouldn't she be? Because the mindfulness has now entered schools, has now entered corporate, at least until a few years back. It was $1 billion industry. So many investors were pumping in money on apps which will teach mindfulness. I know at least one person who has chosen his career as a mindfulness coach. He regularly goes and trains the employees in several companies how to be a mindful leader, mindful manager, a mindful team player, so on and so forth. Now it's coming in buzzword. But what is it actually? And why do I keep my title as Mindfulness 2.0. This is what will be the exploration today. What is the meaning of mindfulness? What can be mindfulness 1.0 and what can be mindfulness 2.0? And how Bhagavad Gita itself gives a very elevated view of mindfulness, which is not spoken by many of the mindfulness experts today. And that will help us appreciate our tradition even more. Okay? But I'll not stick to only theory. I'll also provide certain tools, and basic principles so that in our day-to-day lives we can be mindful. And along the way, we'll also speak about some science of perception. Okay, and I hope that may be intriguing to you and something new if you have not gone through. I'll stop in the middle, roughly around 35 minutes time duration. Then we'll take questions and reflections. Again, reflections means no questions, you just reflect. And then we'll go ahead with completing the session around 7 o'clock or maybe 6:50, and then we'll open for final questions. Okay. So first, what is mindfulness? This picture is handy to understand it. Two persons are walking in a field. There are trees, there is sun, there is just vast landscape. Their purpose of going in the fields is to lose track of their troubles and anxieties and their past and future, and just to be in the present with the fields, with the trees, and with the sun. But here you have two contrasting snapshots of their minds. The person on your left, what does he have in the mind? He has all the apps opened. In fact, one of the persons whom I know who has written a book on mindfulness now, he was an earlier monk and then he chose his career to be a mindfulness expert, is actually, the book is called Closing the Apps. So you see this person who has all the apps open, particularly the apps of the past, which talks about some pleasant memories, some grudges, some lists which he forgot to answer, so on and so forth. And some apps about the future, which symbolize miseries, some separation from loved ones in the future, some forecasted miseries which will come, some fears, like in Corona time, we have work in the present which we want to do, but we have continuously a misery lurking in the background of our minds, isn't it? So these are the apps of past and future, but these are not like completely compartmentalized. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये एक past का app आता है, past का all the apps of the past are there and then all the apps of future are there, but they're all intermixed. Sometimes when things of past, sometimes future, sometimes all get mixed up. So all the apps are opened except for the transparent app to just focus on the current present, which is the field, the trees and the sun, and perhaps the person with whom our dear person on the left is walking with, isn't it? So this is full of mind, or mind full with a double L. The mind is completely full, and the person is not, mark this word, conscious. We'll explore this word because this is the key word of mindfulness. Conscious of the present surroundings, and what he's supposed to do in the mind about the present, isn't it? He's supposed to just behold what he's seeing in his mind, which is what the person on the right is doing. She has nothing in the mind. She just is processing what she's looking at. In fact, this is a simplistic picture. This does not mean that her app She's not getting any thoughts about the past or future, just that those apps are not opened. Thoughts of the past or future will come. She will just shine the light of consciousness, or she'll just observe without engaging with it. This is important. The person on the left, he gets all the thoughts, he starts engaging with all of them. It's like you get a desire, oh, I should read that book. So you immediately start Googling it. Or you get a desire that I must order that food. You immediately go and see which all restaurants are open and are providing that food. Or you want to talk to a person. So many thoughts keep on coming, and one starts engaging with them. And not only thoughts which pertain to actions, but some feelings also. Like a thought will come about some bad experience in the past, then you may start engaging with it positively or negatively. However, the person on the left is not engaging, isn't it? She is just aware that they are there without engaging, and she's just engaging in one sense with the present. This is mindfulness. Mindfulness means that one is completely aware about his or her present state outside, right? And also what are the thoughts coming without engaging with them. Okay? So I hope this is clear. Let me repeat it. Mindfulness with a single L means that one is completely conscious about the surrounding, and he or she is at the same time aware of what thoughts and feelings are hitting his mind without engaging with them, because the sooner you engage with them, you'll be drifted away, and then you'll not be aware of the present situation. So isn't that desirable? Because if you are not engaging with the thoughts, then you can really focus on one particular thing in the present, isn't it? But if you are engaging with all the thoughts which are hitting your mental plane, you will just swim away with that without focusing on what's happening in the present. So that's the difference between full of mind and mindfulness. Full of mind means you are certainly not aware of the present. You are in the own world because some thought is dragging you. And so many thoughts are coming. So that's the difference between full of mind and mindfulness. So what is the key word here, which we'll now explore, is being conscious. Being conscious about the surroundings and about the thoughts without engaging with them. Isn't it? So this word conscious is important. The state of being conscious is called consciousness. Now, what is this consciousness? What is the thing about being conscious? The person who is full of mind is really not conscious of his thoughts. Why? Because he is just engaging with them, and he is driven with them. So there is no separation between what he thinks about himself and the thought. On the other hand, the lady on the right, she may get a thought, but she is able to distance herself, what she thinks about herself and the thought. So no sooner you distance yourself from the thought, you became conscious of it. And hence, you can then actually decide to not engage with it. Because if there is no distance between you and the thought, how can you choose to engage with it or not? You'll be just swept away. So this creation, this state of distance between the object you are conscious of and yourself is the act of consciousness, isn't it? We say that I am conscious about something when there is a distance between what you are conscious about and you yourself, isn't it? So now there are different models of consciousness. The first model of consciousness is the neural model of consciousness. This is the modern science version. It says that the ability to kind of becoming conscious about anything, which means the ability to have a distance between you and that particular object, is generated by our neurons. You know, we have so many neurons in our body. Collectively, they generate a particular feeling through nerves, neuron firings, and some chemicals. All together, it generates a particular feeling of I-ness. I-ness. मैं हूँ ना, right? So that, because once you have that feeling of I-ness, then you can say, I am not that particular thing, and hence I'm conscious of that particular thing. I am not this phone, so I can be conscious about this phone, that this phone exists. But for that, I need to have a sense of I-ness, isn't it? I am so-and-so thing. What neural model says that whatever this sense of I-ness is generated internally only. So now there is a big problem in it. So many problems. I can highlight few of the issues which modern scientists have pointed out. First, the neurons and the nerve cells are continuously dying, and in fact, after some years, all of them are dead. So what creates a continuum between the dead cells and the new cells? That's sort of I-ness, right? If all the cells are producing this sense of I-ness, the sense of I-ness should be something else after so many years. But I am the same Himanshu who was 7 years ago or 10 years ago. And perhaps if I live, then Himanshu after 7 or 10 years. So that sense of I-ness is a continuum. How does the continuum remain when these neurons break down, die? So that's one issue. And secondly, which is kind of intuitive, how is the memory preserved? Because much of the sense of I-ness comes from the memory which we hold, isn't it? So when the cells are dying, what preserves the memory? The memory which helps us to make our identity, isn't it? So these are the problem with the neural model of consciousness. Now let's come to a new model of consciousness, which is a Vedic model of consciousness, and it gives us a 3-step, it's a hierarchy of our existence, and we have spoken about it at length in our previous sessions. That first is the level of existence in the plane of matter or senses, which are all blood, marrow, organs, tissues, capillaries, arteries, everything. Then there is the software, and also matter includes our neurons. Then there is a mind and intelligence, which is a subtle software which uses the matter, but that is also dead. What surcharges both mind and matter is the person sitting behind, which is Atma, or the spark of consciousness. It's the source of consciousness. It's in this model, consciousness is not generated by some activity, but it is inherent of itself. So it's like the user who is animating the software and the matter through the software. So in this model of consciousness, there is a, like you can say, light bulb of consciousness. It shines through mind and intelligence, and through mind and intelligence, it shines our or surcharges our limbs and eyes and nose and face and ears and everything. So it's like 3 layers. There's a bulb, there is a layer of mind, and there is a layer of our senses. And finally, there is an object, isn't it? So this is the sense of I-ness, isn't it? So what happens when actually the Atma or consciousness is pure in its existence? It is full of knowledge, Satchit Ananda, full of knowledge, eternity, and bliss. But depending what screen of mind one has, when the Atma shines through this mind, it creates a particular sense of I-ness. Like if my mind, through various births and through experience in this life had been accustomed to think as an artist, then 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 what will happen when the light of Atma will shine through it? I will think I am an artist, isn't it? It's not that in and of itself, mind is producing this artist category because mind is dead. Hmm? And see the folly of the neural model of consciousness, right? It cannot explain why, after some years, when all the brain cells die, the I-ness remains the same. But here is a person who thought himself to be artist at 4 years of age and thinks himself to be artist at 18 years of age. Is the same I. How is that possible? Because the light which is shining, remains even though all the brain cells change, isn't it? Okay, and this apartness of mind and intelligence also remains. It is beyond. This is a subtle aspect, isn't it? It's not the matter and senses which are changing. So this is our Vedic model of consciousness. Now, having explained that, how do we perceive anything given this model of consciousness, isn't it? Because it's all about perception. When we are talking mindfulness, we are aware about things, we are conscious about things, so which means we are aware that this phone is existing. So how do I perceive this phone? So this may be intriguing to some of you because it is different from, little bit different from what modern science explains us. How do you perceive apple from modern science point of view? You cannot perceive the apple in darkness, and you cannot perceive the apple if you don't have a sound eye and a sound brain, isn't it? So what happens according to modern science? There is light. So light is reflected from this apple. It enters our functioning eyes, makes an image or flipped image, whatever, at the back of our eyeball. Optical nerve carries the signals to our mind, to our brain. Then some neurons fire. It creates an image of an apple and constructs the whole thing about apple, isn't it? From our past experiences, and we perceive an apple in that way. But two things are not able to explain here. Sometimes what we call out-of-body experiences, in which a person is clinically dead, his eyes are not functioning, his brain is not functioning. The brain, the cells, nervous cells, gray cells are not functioning. He's clinically dead. But after he comes back to his external awareness, he is able to relate things as though he was seeing them in the operation theater. Or if he was in accident or she was in accident, they are able to see as though they have transmigrated out of the body. So how do you explain that? There may be completely darkness, their eyes are not working, their brains are not working. How do you explain that? And then there is something called yogic vision, which is called Ati Indriya vision. Indriya means senses, Ati means beyond. The beyond senses vision, in which people are able to clearly see and experience an apple lying in Karachi or an apple lying in America. There is no light coming from there, isn't it? And they may be with closed eyes, which means eyeballs are not required there. So what's happening there in that kind of vision? The Vedic model of consciousness, this Vedic model of consciousness which I explained, lends us a mechanism of perception which can explain these two use cases. Okay, let's see how. So not only does it need light from apple to travel to our eyes, but it also needs consciousness, which is, seated in our Atma or soul. This Atma is the source of consciousness, to travel through our mind, through our eyes, and engulf this apple. Okay? So two things are happening. One is the light traveling from the apple to our eyes, to our mind, and to this to the mind. and then we are able to perceive the apple. That's the model of modern science. But what the Vedic model is saying, no, you need another direction also. Soul consciousness is shining through mind, okay? And then depending on what is your state of mind, it will also shine after that mind in a different way. For example, if your mind is completely clouded, even though apple is put in front of you, light is coming from apple, you won't perceive it. Sometimes it happens, right? We are in a complete state of mind and we say, oh, I never saw that person. I never perceived that person. I never perceived that object. Why? Because mind is so clouded that when the shine of the soul is coming, it's hitting the mental plane, it's not coming out only because mind is so clouded. So as much light can enter from the apple, you will not be able to perceive the apple. So Vedic will consciousness is saying that when the soul shines through mind and then through eyes, it engulfs that apple. And that's an important process in perceiving that apple. And that's the reason, if the light of the soul is so powerful in the sense that mind is not clouded, one may not need the sunlight to travel from the apple back to our eyes. That's the reason yogis who are with their closed eyes can see an apple in Karachi. Why? Because their mind is so peaceful and so unclouded, the consciousness itself is able to shine that apple which is far and wide. That's one explanation. Explanation, one use case. Second use case was outer body experiences. Yeah. So the soul along with the mind travels outside. Then the soul is able to shine through the mind. Mind also came out of the body. Body is lying dead. And then there is no need of the physical eye because that shine through the mind then engulfs that particular object left in that operation theater. And the soul is able to perceive. And once the person comes back, the experience which is stored in the mind, he is able to relate back. Oh, I saw that particular scissors kept in the operation theater. So this is perception according to the Vedic model of consciousness. So keep that in mind. So this is a famous saying, right? We have Sherlock Holmes who would say that you need to observe than to just see. And it happens with us, right? When objects are in front of us, because our minds are so clouded, we are not able to perceive them. Why? Because the consciousness is not able to travel through our clouded mind to engulf that particular object. It's not about the light entering or not. Light may be entering our eyes, but why we are not able to experience the presence of that object? Because the mind is so clouded, isn't it? However, it's not a complete dismal picture, in the sense that we are in day-to-day activities act in a very heightened state of awareness. Some of the activities we act in a very heightened state of awareness. We are talking about mindfulness, the need of mindfulness, but already some of us may be extremely mindful in some activities. Driving is one. Why? Because there is a danger of death. So when a person is driving, the main task to be focused is the present highway where the person is going. But the person has to be aware of what's happening here, what's happening in the driver's seat, what's happening outside his car. Is somebody trying to cut him off, somebody trying to surpass him off, somebody is honking. This person cannot react to all these situations, right? I mean, if there is a child or a person near is talking, he cannot start looking at the person and start talking to him. No, he has to focus. But he can be aware that there is a person and talking, and if he's a small child or she is a small child, he has to make sure that the person is on the seat and not jumping. And if the person sees that another car is overtaking his car, he has to be calm and cool and not start looking at the person and start acting in what is called road rage, isn't it? So, driving, if you're carefully doing, is an activity where we are mindfully acting, mindfully in terms of the situations around and focusing in the present. Some other activities, if one is connoisseur of an art, there is a painting, so many things are happening in the painting, but one may be focused on just one gazella, right? There's a gazella in front, while so many things are happening in the present, so in the painting. Maybe eagles are there, some bushes are there, some trees are there, some faint light is there, maybe some snake is there. Yeah, there is a lot of noise, but I want to focus on the gazella. So connoisseurs of art are able to mindfully appreciate. They are able to shine through their consciousness on one particular object. So remember, consciousness shines through the mind, engulfs that object, and you perceive that object. Because you're not shining, light may be entering from all the objects, but you are not aware of them, or you're not engaging with them because you're not shining your consciousness through them on them. Okay? For example, this particular painting, so many things are happening. There are mountains, there's snow, there are some shops there, but you may be focusing on just, you may be just focusing on the entire view without engaging with a particular aspect of the painting, isn't it? So you're just completely aware. So we may act mindfully in one situation or the other, but generally we are able to act mindfully in terms of like this. Mindfully is not the right word. I would say we act aware of our physical situation. Like we are driving, we are aware of what is happening around us. Or when we are seeing a painting, we are aware what to focus and what not to focus. But it's hard when it concerns our mind. Like we are walking in Corona time and we are aware of, are we keeping social distancing or not? Are we? So my headphone is getting discharged. Give me one moment. I'll just change it. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So say we are walking in a street busy with people and somehow we have to make sure corona norms are followed. So we are aware of the physical situations, but it is very, very hard to be aware of our mental situation. And that's why mindfulness is tough. Because mind is like a movie screen. Random movies with random lens are played at random. And we can't see them in the sense that we see physical objects, isn't it? I mean, I can't say, oh, ye thought aa gaya. What do you mean by this thought? You can't pull it out, isn't it? So it becomes all the more hard to distance from the mind. See what we are talking about. Being conscious. What is the meaning of being conscious? That I'm able to shine light on that particular object, isn't it? For physical objects, it's easy. But how can I shine light on the mind itself? That's tough, isn't it? And that's where the problem of the neural model of consciousness comes. Because in the neural model of consciousness, it says that our own cells itself have created this sense of I-ness. So if your brain cells itself have created the sense of I-ness, and your thoughts itself are produced by neurons, so how can two entities which are created by the same thing have a distance between them? It's hard. But in the Vedic model of consciousness, the source of I is completely different from mind. so it can distance itself from the mind. So in the mindfulness 1.0, or what is taught in the world by different mindfulness experts, it is all about doing exercise and some meditation so as to train the mind. Train the mind that I should be distant from my thoughts. But the foundation is broken here because the I-ness and the thoughts both are produced from the neurons and the nervous cells. So how in the long run it is possible to have a distance between them? And that is why one may try to do a lot of exercises about the mind and meetings and drills, but ek hawa ka jhoka and it all turns topsy and turvy. And this is what Krishna is indicating. Why? Because the mind itself, so it's easy to be aware of physical objects, but it's very easy to dislodge our real selves, our real identities from the mind. Uddharet atmanatmanam natmanam avastadaye. And Krishna is telling, for mind is the friend of the conditional and enemy as well. It can remain the greatest enemy. So, and Krishna is also explaining simple thing can lead to a spiraling journey. One may try years and years of doing different mind drills and things like that, but because he or she has not understood the real identity, mind can get latched to one particular thing and the person will be swept astray. This is the process Krishna is describing in Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate. Dhyayatah, that you start contemplating. So you have trained your mind, but you start contemplating on one thing. Maybe you had an experience about it 20 years ago. Suddenly an attachment develops. Sangaha. Then from Sangaha, what happens? Kamaha, a strong desire. And the word used is lust, but lust doesn't only mean for sensual objects. It means to covet or to possess anything which you badly want to enjoy. And from unfulfilled, this desire to enjoy, anger will arise. Why I'm not getting it, or why I'm not getting it the way I want it. Anger is inevitable to come because any phenomena in this world is temporary. You may not get an object, so that may create anger. You may get an object, but it's not the way you want it, so that may create anger. Or you may get the object, it may be the way you want it, but may not last longer than you expected. So that may also create anger. And what happens when anger happens? Krodhat. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means it's like bewilderment. Now all your mind exercises you forget. And then sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Bewilderment of memory. I already explained that. For delusion. Delusion means you're not able to think. Everything is clouded. I cannot explain it. Everything becomes clouded. Oh, kya ho raha hai, kya chal raha hai. Uske baad, you don't remember that I'm supposed to sit and meditate. Smriti bhramshad buddhi nasho. Intelligence is lost, to discriminate or not. And buddhi nashat pranashyati. You back to square one, back to full of mind from mindfulness. So this is indicated pictorially here. Contemplation, then attachment, then strong desire to enjoy, then frustration, then delusion, then bewilderment of memory. Loss of intelligence, back to square one. So we want to move from this type of mindfulness which just focuses on some mind exercises and believe that your I-ness and your mental thoughts are both generated from nerves. Somehow by doing exercises, you can create a distance between the I-ness and your thoughts. As we saw, and as what Krishna is describing, mind has fierce godlike powers. This may not last for a long time. So we need to go from mindfulness 0.0 to mindfulness 1.0, in which the model says that, Baba, it's theoretically also possible to dislodge between mind and yourself, because you are different from the mind. The source of consciousness is sitting behind the mind, and mind is dead. So just like you can shine the consciousness from the bulb of your consciousness, shine the light of consciousness from your Atma through the mind and through the object, and then see, oh, this is the phone. Similarly, you can shine the consciousness from the source of your consciousness, which is Atma, on your mind, which means you're observing the mind, because you can do it, because you're different from the mind. So it's just not some willy-nilly, some exercises, I'll be able to now see thoughts which are coming. It's theoretically possible to. But now we need to move from from this stage too, because even though we understand, at least theoretically, that we are the consciousness sitting behind mind, mind is still very powerful. Whatever be the model of consciousness, neural model, Vedic model, mind is powerful. Krishna says that. So we do not depend only on our strength, but we depend on the higher strength. And that's the strength of grace. And this is mindfulness 2.0. That not only we are the source of consciousness, but we are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, who is also sitting in our heart. So our strength comes not only from our diligence, but from the grace of that Lord which is sitting within us. And this is the Lord whom we call Paramatma. So I'll stop here now. And I know this is the first time I did some research in trying to bring this understanding. So it may be a little cryptic to you. So please feel free to share your thoughts for maybe next 5 minutes. And then I'll tell you ground to truth, principles and techniques which you can apply and implement this mindfulness 2.0 in your daily life. So any reflection, thought, comment? Maybe 1, 2 reflections would be good, so that I know you are following. Come on, 1 thought. You can write in the chat too. I guess I'll not move if I not hear from you all. No thoughts, nothing? Okay, I guess maybe we'll take this towards the end. So what are the principles and tools? I'll just quickly wrap up in the next 10 minutes. Now that you understand, mindfulness is better not be just some exercises, thinking that my sense of I-ness and the thought which I need to distance myself are all produced from some brain cells. Because if they are produced from the same object, how it will be possible to differentiate, to create a distance? But if I know that my essential identity is separate from my mind, then I can at least theoretically distance myself. And it's possible. So what are the principles? Krishna mentions about it. When Arjuna tells Krishna, "Oh chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi balavad dridam tasyaham nigraham manne vayo reverse dushkaram." That mind is chanchal, restless, pramathi, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. I can control wind, but I will not be able to control mind. So Krishna didn't say, Are, you are joking. Or Krishna didn't say, no, it's not true. Krishna said, yeah, you are right. But still you can do it by asamshayam hi mahabhavo. Oh, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. Mano dur nigraham shalam. But by two things you can do it. Abhyas and vairag. So these are the two principles. Principles of determination and principles of detachment. What is determination principle? That it will not happen. It will not happen in one go. It will not happen overnight. So you have to wait for it. You have to keep practicing. Have that determination. We are all troubled. Distraction, lack of focus. Certain work is given to us, but we are not able to be aware of that work, but we are aware of everything in the past and future. Okay, that's the state. We are on this journey of becoming mindful 2.0, but we have to keep the determination that hote. It's like a disease. We have gotten a disease. ऐसा थोड़ी अभी दवाई ली और कल ठीक हो जाएगी. That's why they prescribe 5 weeks of medication, or in like now the vaccination, they are saying only after you take 1 dose and 6 weeks, and then after 1.5 weeks the immunity will be developed. You can't expect vaccination ले लिया immunity develop हो जाएगा पूरा. And that's one of the reasons why people have become very careless, isn't it? So you have to have determination. And secondly, detachment. Detachment from situations around us. Not taking things. I'm not able to see my screen. Yeah, detachment. So I've used the symbol of the screen is coming in my way. Yeah, I've used the symbol of scissors. We have to stop taking all the things too seriously. Any thought and anything which knocks in our mental plane, just learn to say no, or tender loving neglect. What does tender loving neglect mean? Not like, "Arey, kya ganda thought aa gaya," or "What useless thought has come," or "Arey, this is such an interesting thought." No, tender loving neglect. Oh, it's come, theek hai. We'll take care about it. Many times we learn to say no, or just not acting on it. It will develop the muscle of detachment. And then we'll be situated ourselves in our real I-ness. And what is that real I-ness? That I'm a spirit soul, I'm Atma. Somehow I'm acting in this world through the apparatus of mind and the senses, but I'm not mind and senses. Which means we have to start doing this tender loving neglect to any and every situation, any random situation which is thrown on us by life. Because it will be here today, gone tomorrow. It is temporary. But this is all about mindfulness 1.0. We are talking about mindfulness 2.0. So the third principle is samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram. Seated spirit soul, we have to see in everybody the true perception that everybody around us, or in fact every object around us, has the presence of Lord in it. When we see that Lord factor, the Krishna factor, is so important that all the other small thoughts which can drag us away from this big vision naturally die away. It's like, you're walking on the street and suddenly Prime Minister comes and stands in front of you. I mean, I think ordinary person will, all the other perceptions which he was having will just drop dead, and he may be focused on the Prime Minister. Why he has come here? Does he want to meet me? So similarly, if the focus is on the divinity in everything around us, the divine hand which is working in all the situations, then all the other things will naturally fall apart, and we'll be focused on Krishna, or the Supreme Lord. And with that vision, we'll naturally stay in the present. Okay? So this is the principle of divine vision. 3 principles which we can keep in mind. Okay, fine. These are principles, but principles have to we keep in mind, but then we implement it, right? So the tools, what can be done? First tool is of dynamic punctuality. We must be punctual, because if we are not punctual, mind will become lazy and it will start going into fits of past and future, wishful thinking, dreaming, or brooding. But if you make it just strictly punctual without savoring the present, then it will just become slave of schedules, isn't it? Then the calendar will make you run, or the that experience of the present, and sooner than later, mind will again start, becoming cranky, troubled, um, a mind which is sort of stifled, and then it will revolt. So we have to have dynamic punctuality, which means set a broad schedule for your day or work, but then allow for some dynamicity. If you like an activity which is productive for your whatever profession, anything, and it is helping you grow in life or whatever, any activity, and it even crosses boards your schedule, so be it. Okay, if you're meeting a friend after some time and there are uh, conversations full of wisdom, then let's not the schedule stifle it, isn't it? This is the tool of dynamic punctuality. Tool of sattvic investment. We must learn to invest in at least few activities which will absorb us completely. And we'll forget about past or future. We'll forget about time. Any activity. It could be sports. It could be not sports. I'll come back to it. It could be any activity which draws your absorption, but which is sattvic. What does sattvic mean? We know there are 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. It does not agitate you, and it does not make you rest. It does not make you agitate. It does not agitate and make you restless, and it also does not make you hopeless. But rather, it makes you wholesome. Meditation is one activity. Art is an activity. Writing is an activity. But in all this, one can start making very depressive art and start becoming hopeless. Or one can make an act which acts exuberant to life. So tool of dynamic functionality and tool of sattvic investment. But this is not enough, because we are mindfulness 2.0. We have to add tool of bhakti, because only when there is bhakti or devotion to the Supreme Lord, we see the divinity everywhere. And when divinity absorbs us, we'll naturally be in present. Why? Because in spiritual world, there is no past or future. Spiritual world means you're in presence. In the presence of the Lord, you are present. Time is inconspicuous by its action. And how do we develop the tool? What do you mean by tool of bhakti? We at least chalk out some time of our life to exclusively dedicate in remembrance about Sri Krishna, in absorption about Sri Krishna, the Supreme Lord. And this can be done through A, B, C, D, E. You all know this. A means association of devotees, or those who are inclined towards discussing about divinity, Sri Krishna. B, reading about wisdom books or books which talk about Krishna, like Sri Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. C, chanting the Mahamantra. And this is the potent activity even among all these 5. Because first of all, it's meditative, and Hare Krishna Mahamantra naturally attracts grace of Supreme Lord. And when it attracts the grace of the Supreme Lord, our real identity, soul, is detached from anything material, which includes our surroundings and also includes our mind, which is material. That's it. This is the mindfulness. So nothing can be better mindfulness exercise than sincerely chanting Mahamantra. You can begin with a round, 4 rounds, may go all the way to 16 rounds, or do kirtan like that. D is deity worship, which means um, expressing the gratitude to the Lord by offering Him the articles which He Himself has provided to us. And E is entering holy places, because the atoms which are in the air of holy places can naturally turn you inwards. Inwards means away from the thoughts of some different thoughts which are hitting your mental plane, and focusing on you are situated in your real stage, which is the stage of Atma. Okay? With that, I will end. Thank you very much. So remember principles and rules, principles of determination, detachment, and divine vision, 3Ds, and tools. Tool of first is dynamic punctuality, tool of sattvic investment, and tool of bhakti. How to develop bhakti by A, B, C, D, E, and out of this, C is the most potent, and it's a handheld technology. You can do it anywhere. If you don't have beats, you can do it in the fingers. Krishna has provided us the count of 12 here and 12 here. So 12 times, even if you do 9, it's 108, which is 1 round, so on and so forth. Thank you very much. Let's end here. And if you want, you can switch on your videos too, so that I know that I was speaking to humans and that you were mindful in my talk. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone has any questions for
Please.
sir?
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, Varun, go ahead.
Okay. So what is the difference between having the ability to focus and being mindful?
And being?
Mindful.
Yeah. So see, in the modern world, modern science parlance, ability to focus and they are one and the same thing, but from a modern point of view and from Vedic point of view, you see the difference. From modern point of view, what it will mean, the sense of me is some state which is generated by neurons, isn't it? Some state which is generated by the neurons. I will train myself to generate that particular state, so that the other states which are coming from the mind, the different thoughts which are also generated from the neurons, I'll distance myself. Because only when I distance myself, I'll be able to focus. See, mindful means you are aware of the different thoughts, internal and of situations outside, isn't it? Only when you are aware, you'll be able to focus, isn't it? So in one sense, mindfulness leads to focus, and to be focused, you need to have mindfulness. Correct? However, what I was explaining in the later part of the talk is that why mindfulness 2.0 is a much sustainable proposition. Because we understand that our real identity itself is different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So our approach to mindfulness will not be just some mental exercises, but it will also be understanding the whole hierarchy, cosmos. What is the cosmos? What is the position of Krishna? And we'll also depend on grace from Krishna. Completely different approaches. Make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good question. What else? Any other thoughts?
Anyone else would like to answer, would like to ask questions? Any reflections of thoughts?
Sir, one more question. So let's say I'm traveling in a bus. I see something, and then it initiates some thought in myself. And then I continue to think about the same.
Yeah.
Now, is that process being mindful or not?
That's not mindful because you're engaging with the thought.
Yeah, but then I'm not
Did you
doing
decide?
anything else, right?
Huh?
I'm not supposed to be doing anything else. No, I'm just enjoying the journey. So
So see, if you, so again, being mindful is always in the context of what you were supposed to do and what you're not doing. If suppose you gave freedom to you, okay, I am going on the journey and then I'll just bask in whatever comes. There's no question. That's being mindful. I mean, you have allowed yourself, isn't it? But if you wanted to focus on a particular activity and your engagement with the particular thought is distracting you away from that activity, then you're not being mindful, isn't it? So suppose you gave yourself permission, okay, if I see the tree, I'll just enjoy in the beauty and things like that. Yeah, I mean, there is no question of mindfulness coming here unless it takes you to some memory lane and you start feeling some anguish within the heart, then the question will come. See, it's not a digital thing that you're mindful or not. There is a series of great transitions between being mindful and being not, isn't it? Is it clear? That was a good question.
yeah, but then I have one more question. So now I follow this chain of thought, but then I'm not being observant around me. Now, how do you explain this state?
I mean, it's up to you what problem statement you have put for yourself. When I write, I don't want to be observant about anything else. I just want to be observant of what I write. I don't want to be observant about what are there in the surroundings of what thoughts I get. And if I'm able to do my focus properly, that means I'm being mindful because inevitably some disturbance will come, some thought will come. And because I've set my problem statement to just focus on that activity, by not engaging with those thoughts, I'm being mindful. Right? So if your problem statement was you go in the bus, you really don't care about what is happening in the entire visual noise. Yeah, you're mindful. But if your problem statement was that you go around and be observant of everything around, and if you're able to do that, then you're mindful. Does that make sense? It depends on the problem statement.
Okay.
If I am writing and I'm getting engaged with the thought of eating, I'm not mindful. But while I'm eating and I'm just eating and savoring it, I'm mindful. You see, it's the problem statement.
And again, going by what you said in the talk, so let's say if I'm writing, it's okay to have thoughts of something else, but then I just shouldn't engage in them.
Engagement is important because engagement takes
But it's okay for thoughts to
from the
pass.
present. Oh, they must. They have to. Mind is full of thoughts. We cannot create a void inside, right?
Yeah.
However, what will happen when we start becoming mindful day by day and have sattvic engagement, then the thoughts of passion and ignorance will slowly over the time subside down. They will not attack with such intensity because they know, Are, dhyan hi nahi deta, bhav hi nahi deta. They will know, right? They will not get some engagement. If you give positive or negative engagement, they will attack you. Make sense? So the tender loving neglect, TLN. Good, very nice question.
Thank you.
I should have mentioned this, that it depends on the problem statement. Mindfulness is to be understood in the context of a problem statement. If I'm painting and I'm thinking about eating, I'm not mindful. But if I'm only eating, when I decided to only eat, I'm mindful. Okay, good. Thank you. Nice question.
Anyone else? One last question we could have. Okay, I think yes. I think everything was very clear. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Extremely
Thank
grateful
you.
to you for once again accepting my invitation for again coming and enlightening the students on this very beautiful topic, mindfulness 2.0. And hopefully, hopefully we'll have you in the future once again. Thank you, dear
Thank you.
friends. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you, dear friends, for coming and joining us for another enthralling session by Dr. Himanshu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Munna. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful session.
Thank you, Ajay. Bye bye. Hi, बोल सिद्धेश